check this out, or what actually is the process?
The number one thing in TNA is a guy named Keith Mitchell, which I think you probably know Keith.
Absolutely.
Back in the day.
Yep.
Yeah. So Keith is the guy who gives us our counts. So for those that don't know what a count is, it's basically our ins and outs, the breaks or bumpers, or like a graphic. Well, it might say, tonight on Spike TV, Bellator fight, fighter A versus fighter B. So that count will come from Keith Mitchell to Mike Tenay and I. But a lot of stuff, just like in WWE, if something's going to happen backstage and interrupt a match, they'll just crash. So we kind of get caught organically, so it doesn't sound staged.
Yeah. It seems like this show is maybe a little less scripted than WWE. Is that just me taking it that way, or is that the case?
Oh, no, bro, that's completely the case. And obviously what WWE does works for them with their success and all, but I got to say, in TNA, it's definitely a little more like it was back in the day.
Right.
Where, if you want a promo scripted, certain guys, like their stuff, scripted, written out, and the writers will do that for them. But most of the guys and gals, they kind of just get direction, get some bullet points, kind of like I did it back in the day with a promo, or kind of like, Stone Cold would have did it back in the day with a promo, where you just get a couple of bullet points of where they want to go and just, kick ass on a stick. That's kind of the way it's done.
Yeah. I dig it. Hey, man, let's go back a couple of decades, eons, back when the dinosaurs were still roaming the earth and you were a young child growing up in Strong Island. What got you hooked on the business of pro wrestling?
I needed a job. I grew up in Brooklyn, the city. So I was never like a huge fan. I would watch wrestling and, we didn't get much old school, like Florida Championship Wrestling or Georgia or NWA. All we got was WWF back then. So, as a kid from New York, I was always a fan of like Bruno Sammartino and stuff like that, because that's all we ever really saw. But I wasn't like a diehard wrestling fan. I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you. I was always a fan of it, but I never was like, I want to be a pro wrestler type guy. That just wasn't my deal. I was in college, I was playing football and all this stuff, and then I just, I wasn't going to class. I was being a knucklehead, and I needed a job, and I was bouncing at a bar, and I was doing like all odds and end jobs and construction jobs, and my father was like, yeah, it's going to get a job, or you're getting thrown out of his house, so that's true. So he knew a guy that was training people to be pro wrestler, and I borrowed the money from my girlfriend back then and her brother, who's now